1, 2, 3, 4. So much care, I feel down, I feel your awesome stare, and now I know I was out.
We're live.
Well, we're not live.
We're recording ourselves.
Right,
In a natural situation here.
let's open us up. Welcome to the We Don't Know the Name of This Podcast show, a podcast dedicated to authenticity.
Dum, dum, dum. I love authenticity. It doesn't get more authentic than this.
No?
This is raw footage.
Well, I think we were a little bit more authentic when we did it 5 weeks ago, because this is our 5th podcast.
Well, that's
So-
true. We just got a little bit under our belt. We're a little more comfortable staring at the camera in front of us. And
True. I like this camera setup a lot better than the computer screen.
yeah, it's not so invasive in your face, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, good deal. Well, let's kind of recap last week. We did something a little bit different. Instead of doing a live stream, we decided to go to recording. Mike looked at the results. He said everything came out good, other than there's a little bit of a echo off the ceiling of my house here. But we're ready to push on. I know you said it'd be a good time to start really working on the outline of the show, and
Yeah.
what are we going to peel into and all that good stuff.
Our content.
And our name. Our name was
name.
kind of up in the air. And
Yeah.
I've got podcast notes in front of you. I had
Okay.
some of the ideas. I couldn't remember the name that you came up with last week, but
Yeah.
some of the podcast names that we came up with, Blimpcast, The Basement Podcast, Rubber City Podcast, The Mike and Greg Show, The Akron Podcast Experience, The Ordinary Sitting Show, The Akron Podcast, and I didn't know if you had any to...
The Akron Podcast. That was kind of like the combination, because I said the Akron Show, and you were like, you're into the podcast. I said, well, let's throw out the Akron Podcast.
I like the Akron Podcast. It'd be nice to own that. I'm wondering if we have to copyright that at some point or something like that, so somebody wouldn't steal it from us. But
Well,
is that going to be the name of this podcast then?
that's what it is.
You
Let's
saw
make
it.
The Akron Podcast with Greg and Mike.
And with all authenticity, you just saw it. We just came up with the name. So it is the Akron Podcast. We're going to have a lot of fun. And so that part is done. Check that off.
Check it off. I love it. Threw that out.
And that's
here.
lucky number 7 on the list. So
All right.
now we have a name.
We can jump out of order. That's good.
Well, that was actually in order, as a matter of fact. That was
Oh, was
the
it?
first
Was the first thing? But number 7 on that list.
Yes. Yeah, 7 of the
I love this.
examples I had there.
I'll show you. Greg made these awesome notes here. It makes me feel very official sitting here.
Well, and for those people that know me, they wouldn't be surprised at all that I did this. This is kind of my thing. Yeah,
That's
I'm
cool.
I'm a little
Yeah.
bit organized at anal when it comes to things like this. So while we're figuring things out,
No one
don't
can complain
jump.
about that if they do. Well,
They got problems.
yeah.
Let's see here. Building the podcast, I do that at the top. Here's my thought. So we get to the beginning of every show, right?
Right.
And going back to Speech 101, they always tell you, tell them what you're going to tell them. Step number 2, tell them. And then step number 3 is to tell them what you told them. So I'm wondering if we want to follow that same outline before we start our podcast. And there you go.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good format. Start off the show with what the show's going to be about. Then we get into the meat of what it was, and then we summarize it.
Yes.
What it sounds. It sounds good.
Well, with that said, today We talked a little bit already about building the podcast, because that's what this is all about, especially in the beginning. I put together a current events area. We'll talk about those today. Talked about podcast ideas. I don't know. I think we've talked about this a little bit. Are you currently watching any podcast whatsoever other than ours?
I watch other YouTube shows, podcasts.
Sure. Yeah.
I have checked out some other, kind of famous podcasts out there, like PewDiePie. And
Never heard of that.
no,
No.
he's famous. I checked out some of the other types of shows where they do like reviews or things, kind of what we're doing here, just to kind of see how other people are laying out their show. Some people have lots of graphics and explosions on the screen and text flowing, and maybe we'll do a little.
So we'll have a lot of dialogue in that area.
We can talk.
So podcast
Do a little bit of
ideas
it,
and talk about what other folks are doing there, what we might want to implement there. And then we have upcoming events, and I can't wait to talk about that. And I apologize for not going to your gig. I forgot all about it. And
that's all right.
So
It was hot and steamy at Annabelle's down there. I don't know, there must have been 100, 120 people
Nice.
crammed down into that basement. At least it felt like that.
How
And
many
it was,
fans?
There was one fan on my left that I had to keep leaning back into.
Like a fan. Like out of the 110, that's a lot of people in Annabelle. So how many of them
Oh,
were
they
there
were
to
all
see?
fans.
Outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Every last one of them there,
Sweet.
Hugged them all, shook all their hands, and we appreciate all of the fans that come out and see us. Akron is our home base, so when we play here, we usually have a good reception.
So you weren't surprised at 110?
Well, it was our best night. It was probably one of our better shows. Yeah. I mean, usually there's probably a good Akron show at Annabelle's, maybe 80 people.
That's what I'm
down
saying.
there.
So the
And
heat did not help things.
No, the heat was, like unbearable. Someone took a picture of me, posted me up on Facebook. I hate when that happens. Are you on Facebook?
No.
Do you Facebook? Right.
No, I don't.
So, we have friends, that take pictures of my daughter and posting them up on Facebook. I'm like,
Right.
I'll put them up there if I want them up there,
Right.
And then people say, oh, you're being too anal about that or whatnot. But same thing with my own personal picture. People's taking your snapshot. But see, that's how invasive that technology is. And even though I'm a tech guy, something about Facebook, just that anyone can take your photograph and post it up there for the world to see. So it's like, you better be on your best behavior at all times.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I don't get into the Facebook thing. I don't
Yeah.
want to see those pictures that people take and throw up
Yeah.
throw up there. And
Well, it was so hot.
you're drenched.
I'm drenched.
Yes.
It wasn't an attractive photo, but yet there it lives.
I think it was, 90
My
degrees, 100% humidity going on that night.
This is how hot it was inside the show. When we went outside, I felt like I stepped into air conditioning. It was cooler outside than it was in the venue.
And it was 90 degrees at 100% humidity. So
No,
yeah,
it
that
was hot.
All right.
But it was a great show. We
We'll-
rocked it.
We'll peel into more of those details because I want to hear all about that. So
All right.
yeah, that's what we've got on our list tonight. So we got the name knocked out while setting up these this outline. Current events. Now, when we first started putting all this together, I know you were excited about the local stuff. So I kind of thought maybe we would throw that ball into your court. I don't know. The things that I threw on here were things that we had talked about. We could talk about the rubber ducks. We could talk about the restaurants. We could talk about upcoming events, things that need fixed in Akron, and fun facts about Akron. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if you want to keep up with the rubber ducks or how we want to go about that. I know they lost last night. I know that it happened at the end of the game. I just happened to catch that on the radio, but I don't know if that's something that I think it
Is that something you're into?
No, not at all.
Oh, not at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
I can tell you as much as I know about the rubber ducks is that whenever they have a show or a game, I hear the fireworks right around roughly 10:30.
Yeah.
It shakes
I
the
love
house.
that.
I love it too.
It's awesome.
That's about as much as I know about the rubber ducks. I'm not a sports guy. It'd be very hard.
I'm a fair weather fan, so
it's hard for me to talk about sports.
Right.
I did follow the Cavs, and that's about as deep sports as I get.
I got into it because they did really well this year. They
They-
made it to the playoffs, and obviously they won the championship.
won,
And
awesome.
how much can you talk
Right.
about that? Probably the entire podcast.
Right.
But do we do the rubber ducks on this podcast?
I don't,
Do we at least?
I mean, I at
find
least
out
like
the
to-
wins and
I-
losses
Well,
for the week.
I
or-
guess we acknowledge them if there's something to acknowledge. It's not something that would trip my trigger that would make me want to stay engaged with them. I don't know if this is this doesn't necessarily have to be about sports or anything in particular. I think,
Well, we've got an audience.
We have an audience.
We've got Disco Steve, and do we want to go down that rabbit hole of doing something that you and I have zero passion about? And I'm going to guess that probably the answer is no. I don't want a podcast where I would rather talk to you about the normal stuff that we always talk about,
Right.
rather than get into stuff that.
Yeah, because people don't want to. I can't even begin to speak educatedly about sports.
Right.
I don't know the players' names. I don't know the rules. So I wouldn't.
Let's not do it.
No, because I just want to give a more honest, viewpoint of what things I can talk. Things. Why I would be talking. I don't want to just vomit stuff about topics that I have no
passion for.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah, I think we need to keep it passionate. Things that we care about. It's our show.
Yes.
You know.
Maybe hit a what did we do in Akron this week?
I worked. I worked hard.
And that might be a nothing, right?
Right.
I worked this week. I can't think of anything I did outside of my neighborhood and work this week. I don't think. But maybe I'll go through, I didn't prepare myself to know what I did this week, so.
Right. I entertained 110 plus people at Annabelle's in Highland Square. That was my civic duty for the week, so I hope the masses, appreciated that. The Akron Beacon Journal, they have a section in there. There's a beat writer. His name's Malcolm Abrams, and he talks about music all the time. And it was the first time in 16 years he wrote about it. So we're like,
sweet.
All right, thanks.
All right, congratulations, my man.
That was
good.
thank you.
Awesome.
That's kind of. I clipped out the article. I laminated it and I put it in my memory book. Thanks,
Heck
Malcolm.
yeah,
Appreciate
heck yeah.
that.
So what do you say about the show?
Oh, it was a used to get people down for the
Nice.
show. So
All
it wasn't a
right, even
review of the
better.
show. I don't know if he was there or not, but
Just to be heard before the show.
yeah, it was kind of nice. It was a nice little local win. Although the Cleveland Plain Dealer and the Scene write about us all the time.
Go figure that. And Scene is a Cleveland-based magazine.
Right.
Right.
And we've been in Buzzbin. That's another magazine that's kind of based out of Canton.
Who made him aware of the show, you think?
I'm not sure. We have a promoter guy that kind of does stuff for us from Love Muffin Records, Adam Rich. Thanks for your help. He's kind of a promotions guy, and he goes out and puts together shows and gigs, and then
Nice.
gets us out there on different medias, radio stations, gets us played on those. So he's been a big help for us, and I met him actually through another Akron magazine called Review Magazine that I was part of back in the 2000s. It existed in the 90s and then went away for a little bit, came back in the 2000s. It's hard to put on a magazine, so when you see people with the magazines out there, it takes a lot of effort to put those on. So
I believe it.
a big team to get those out there.
Well, and I'm wondering if maybe they took over, because I remember in the 90s Scene, like you could go to Highland Square Video and they would have a stack of the Scene magazine. I never realized that was a Cleveland-based magazine, because I know they did a lot for the Akron area as well, but maybe that was their
Northeastern
attempt to-
Ohio,
Okay.
In all these magazines, they're all Northeastern Ohio kind of based, because concerts, you're in the Rock and you're in Canton.
Right.
Well, you're going up to Cleveland for a gig, or vice versa. People come down to Canton, from Cleveland to see shows.
You called that one magazine the Review?
Review magazine was one that we did.
And was that Cleveland, Akron, everywhere in Northeast Ohio
Yep.
also?
Mhm.
Just, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Well, good deal. Well, next thing that I have on the current events is restaurants. And this is another thing. Do restaurants in Akron excite you? Like when
Yes.
they do? All right, so
Yes,
maybe
we're always out eating at the newest restaurants or whatever's happening, so we're always out there doing that. I'd probably eat at almost every restaurant in Akron.
So we want to keep that on there and give us your top 3, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Top 3 restaurants in Akron right now. Definitely Ken Stewart's is on there.
Okay.
So, and he's actually got a couple places. I don't know,
One in
Yellow, yeah, the one in Bath. That's kind of Akron, so you can go to those places. You got Italian and steak kind of restaurant, So great menus at both of those places. The atmosphere is cool. That's a cool place. We go there. Try to go there often. Ken Stewart's. The other place.
Which one do you like the most? The one in Bath or the one here in Akron? That's right off West Market.
Well, there's actually 2 in Bath. There's the Lodge, and then there's the Italian restaurant, which there's one I haven't eaten at. I actually haven't been to that one.
And that's the one right next door to the Lodge?
The Lodge
All
is
right.
the Italian eatery, so I haven't been to that one.
I went to school with Ken Well, did I go to school with him? He went to Old Trail. But, Ken Stewart's, I think his brother was Gervis, or maybe it was his brother-in-law. So I knew his nephew, who actually worked at Ken Stewart's for a while, and the Gervises owned Brown Derby, right? You remember Brown Derby?
I definitely remember Brown Derby, but I don't remember the Gervises.
So that was the guy that started the whole Brown Derby thing, is
wow.
the way I understand it. And they were huge in the 70s and the 80s, and then they kind of disappeared, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they opened, so Perry worked with his uncle for a couple of years at Ken Stewart's, and then he went off on his own to open up a Brown Derby in Medina. And if you haven't been there, I would recommend going there. It's awesome.
My dad used to run a Brown Derby. And we ate at Brown Derbies all the time. So
Yes, I'm sure
he
you
might
did.
know who they are, but
Yeah,
I was
bring
young.
it up.
I was younger at the time, so
I was on his T-ball team.
Oh, yeah.
I probably saw him a good 10 years. No, I take that back. Last time I went to Ken Stewart's Lodge, I ran into Perry. So, when he was
it
working
is
there.
a small world. You always run into people that you meet here or there. You're like, oh, hey, I know you, and
Well, I actually knew the story, so when I was there, I wasn't surprised to see him. But he took good care of us, made us feel extra special.
Oh, that's
and
good.
then lo and behold, he did open up that Brown Derby in Medina. And last time I was there, I can tell you the day I was there, it was 2014 on May 12th. I went there with a work associate of mine who lives in Southern Ohio. And the reason I remember the date is because that next day, on May 13th, is when Akron got nailed. What'd you think?
that's pretty good.
You either hate it or love it. There's no in between.
I like seltzer waters.
And
Yeah,
it's
so-
definitely a seltzer water.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
So what happened is I had dinner at the Brown Derby with my buddy Brett, and then the next night, Akron, Cuyahoga Falls just got nailed with rain big time. And of course, I'm in the water damage industry. So that next day was like Northeast Ohio's biggest water damage event.
Was this last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
When that storm happened, I was actually trying to go to a concert down at the Civic Center,
Yes.
and I witnessed the most craziest thing. I have it on video. Maybe I'll upload it with these videos. But the storm, so much water is rushing through the canal and the city sewers down there that the grates were bouncing and banging, boom, 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 all over the whole place. And I thought when we got out of the car, I'm like, oh, they must have a steel drum or some sort of drumming band down in the commons down below. No, and then we get over there and we see these things just popping up out of the ground and shooting and water spraying 50 feet in the air and the canal's overflowing.
Water was spraying 50 feet in the air.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was like these right out of the sewer grates as the water's rushing through. It's just. It was amazing.
Well, it was an amazing next day. So I woke up and dry patrol had a lot more work than it could handle. Companies were coming from all over the United States because they had heard about that event. And that was, but that's why I remember the date. It was the day after. Woke up to all that mess. So
but good for your business.
Good for the business. Well,
you were making money.
You know, I got to be careful. I got to help a lot of people. That's the way. I don't want to make it sound like that. Right. But
when unfortunate situations happen like that, I mean, it's it's good for you. On the unfortunate side effects, like a mortuary when people die, it's good for their business, right?
Right.
But it happens.
Yeah, I've never been,
It's not like you summon God to bring in the storm.
I was just thinking I've never been compared to a mortuary before, but I guess in a way
everyone's dying to get in there.
So that's that was that whole thing, and everybody knew about it. There was something. If you didn't know somebody that was experiencing water damage, you saw from a whole different light. I hadn't heard that story from anybody else. 50 feet in the air, but I believe it because it was just that nuts.
I'm gonna post the video. I'm gonna attach it to this as a side video up there on YouTube, so you can check out the Akron storm from my vantage point.
Sweet, sounds like a plan. All right, so that was Ken Stewart's number 2 restaurant.
Probably the new Jilly's Music Room. It's not really a restaurant, but it's a bar music place.
Frightened Rabbits played there the other night.
Oh, very good. I don't know the Frightened Rabbits, but
you got to listen to them.
Cool band name.
Yeah, I went to their concert like 2 or 3 years ago in Pennsylvania. Was introduced to them, and real good concert. They put on a show for 91.3, and that's what I know about that. So Jilly's, that's Jilly's
Music Room.
Music Room. Okay, I've never been. Where's that located?
That's right down next to the pizza place, right over here.
Pizza place.
I don't eat there very often, but it's a very famous pizza place. It's right down here where you get the Cuyahoga Valley train station, where they built
Luigi's.
Yes,
okay.
Couldn't remember Luigi's.
Right.
Sorry for the people that love Luigi's. So that's probably on their top 10 Akron list, because that is definitely an Akron staple, and there's we can talk about tons of Akron staples, but you asked me what my top 3.
Yeah, that would, you know what, actually, in my opinion, Luigi's is a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I like going over there. It's expensive. I find it to be expensive, and I find their food to be okay.
Yeah.
That's me, thinking out loud. Not to be mean. Bring down the prices. I'll come back more often. But, but it is a fun place to go.
Yeah, it's one of those once-a-year type places for me.
Yes.
So... Jilly's, we had an awesome meal. We went over there and ate a couple weeks ago, and the food was phenomenal.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'll try it out. Never been there.
Pretty good, in this bar, great drinks there, and you see bands there. So it was pretty cool. I dug that place. And then my number 3, and these aren't necessarily in a specific order.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm just coming up with 3. The other place that I like to eat every now and then, now, they used to be inside of Jilly's. They used to be the restaurant there before it was called Jilly's. It was, I forget, the North Side.
Yeah.
It was called the North Side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And inside of there was a little kitchen, and they made some good food. But those people that were inside the North Side left, and they went and created a restaurant right downtown now called Crave.
Yeah, I've been to Crave.
Yeah.
Crave's great.
And so I enjoy the atmosphere of that place, and it's kind of cool.
I didn't know the story there.
And their food's pretty good.
And they really upscaled. I mean, North Star was a nice place, but Crave is like an outstanding place. It looks like, I'll bet they put a lot more money into Crave than they did North Star.
North Side, yeah.
North Side.
Yeah, because I think that they subletted the kitchen out of the North Side. Because that was really a music venue. And before was that, I mean, back in the day, back when I started college in Akron, that used to be a punk rock club, and when you walked in there, that place was like urine on the floor, and the walls were covered in CDs.
I never.
Oh yeah, it was a great punk rock club, so
Right.
it got a little off the hook in there, and so it's amazing to see how it was transformed
Yeah.
But
I'm
at
sure
that,
Luigi's is happy.
yeah, Luigi's definite major boost because they got a hotel right there now.
Well, I know
They got
they
a
got the
Hilton
hotel
right
there, but what
And to speak of this, because of cool places to eat, and we're talking about right in the basement there is
Yeah.
a speakeasy. Up in the on the ground floor of the hotel, an actual speakeasy, and there's secret passages to get in. You have to know how to get in.
in the brand new hotel.
In the brand new hotel, there's you got to know how to get in there. So
What do you mean?
there's no apparent doors to get into the place.
Oh, but you don't need a secret word or anything to get in.
No,
You just
I actually don't know how the door opened for us, but it opened. It opened, magically opened, and we went, oh, here we go. And we walk inside, it's this beautiful little pub inside
Right.
there. You get all kinds of like margaritas, or
So
I know you're not going to go there at the moment because you're on your 40 days.
40-day challenge.
That's
That's
awesome.
right.
But when you come off of that would be a nice little place just to go because right where it's situated right there is really cool, and it shares a little courtyard with DBA. Are you familiar with DBA? Dante Bacozzi?
Yes.
So they kind of share a little courtyard there, so it's right across from each other.
All right. Yeah, I'll
The whole
check that
area
out.
the whole area is amazing. It's like our classic area of Akron now.
Yeah, it's really cool down there. Now, if I go into that, no, it's not in that area. Right by music. If I'm going out for that kind of thing, have you been to the Blue Line?
No, I haven't been there yet.
You need to
The little
check
jazz
out the
club,
Blue.
right?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
buddy Tony Tropy operates that, and he's actually doing that project right on the corner of Howard and North Street. If you're familiar with that old building, it used to sell just this and that's. Like you would go in there, and it was basically, it almost looked like a condemned building. And if you didn't know and didn't walk through the door, you wouldn't know that they would just sell stuff that they had. Like you could buy stuff, right? Well, Tony Tropy bought that building and is now refurbishing it and putting new lofts in. And yeah, look on the corner there. But he's the one that runs the Blue Line. And whenever I go in there, he takes good care of me and whatnot. But it's an interesting place. They got the jazz going on. Tony plays the flute. So if by chance he happens to be there and knows you, probably pulls out his flute like he did for me and gets up there and really, hits it hard. So
Cool.
lots of great places.
Yeah,
to go to.
there's lots of cool. We'll talk about places like this all over Akron, so people can hear about them.
But your top three right now, as it stands, that would be Ken Stewart's,
Yeah.
Jilly's. Is it just Jilly's?
I think it's Jilly's Music Room.
Jilly's Music Room, and then the Speakeasy at the new hotel.
Crave.
Oh, Crave.
Crave.
I'm sorry.
But I was throwing the Speakeasy in there too. I think they do have snacks or food there too, but
Crave
Yeah.
number 3. Okay,
Yeah, Crave.
cool. And then we'll keep up on new restaurants as well.
yeah, we'll keep hitting them.
Sweet. Upcoming events. Do we have anything upcoming? Again, I think you made a good point. It is really cool at 10 o'clock at night, even if it's a school night. I don't care. I love to hear those fireworks.
Yeah.
Man, it just gives you that urban feel.
Mhm.
It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
And I never miss hearing those fireworks.
No, they're welcome.
Yes.
Living where we are here, I'm sure your windows here vibrate pretty good with them.
Not too bad, but you see the flashes.
Ours vibrate pretty good. You can just feel
Really?
as they're going off. It's pretty cool. But I have an old house. Yours is a much newer home.
I've got the locks on the windows
Yeah.
and whatnot,
Yeah.
so yeah, not getting as much reverberation.
Yeah, but it is awesome. They happen right over there for the internet world that's watching.
Right there.
Yeah. So we're, it's really cool where we live here because we live right at the mouth of the Cuyahoga Valley National Park system.
Well, our backyard is America's Byway.
And it is America's Byway, Memorial Parkway. I guess, I'm good enough where we live in now.
Oh, they know.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, we did it last time.
We spilled the beans.
Shoot, I keep doing that too. That's all right.
Yeah, well,
We'll wave at you if you drive by.
that's what we do all day long.
Yeah, hey, neighbor, how you doing? But we got the whole park system right here, and literally downtown Akron is a half a mile to a mile right through the trees. So
As the crow flies.
we are in the city, I mean, we're
Certainly.
pretty city proper.
Yeah.
You know, we are the housing that's right downtown, pretty much. And we're in this beautiful park system. It was surrounded by these trees, so we don't even feel like we're in the city, but yet we have the spectacles that the city brings, like the fireworks and the marathons and,
Yes.
you know, all the,
Oh, speaking of the marathon, this is a hat from the first original
the
marathon. So,
Roadrunner,
a
Time
little
Warner
bit,
Roadrunner. We don't
little-
see that anymore though, do we? It's no longer the Roadrunner race. is it?
Nah, you know what I noticed that last year? They call it they kept the blue line, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what they're doing with it, to be
Right.
honest with you. I always liked the Roadrunner personally.
Yeah, he's gone though. Now it's Charter. We're no longer Time Warner now even. So now it's Charter Cable.
Well, I don't have Charter,
Oh.
and I don't have Warner Cable anymore. I went with Uverse.
Yeah.
Uverse gave me a better deal.
Mhm.
You know, everything works just as good, and I got a lower price, so I went with Uverse. If what Charter comes back and gives me a price worth going through the pain of changing cable stations, which don't we all love, right? You know, maybe
Painful.
I will make that change, but they've got to make it worth my while, and they can't give me a great deal for the first 12 months and then try to take me back to their crappy rate. I just won't go back for that. So don't even bother calling if that's what your plan is, just saying.
You hear that, Charter? Don't even call.
We need more competition in that arena because, I don't know about you, but I just...
But they're like
It's expensive.
AT&T. They own the line. So they're
Yes.
always going to have their hands in it.
Oh, yes, but it's just...
It's just the truth.
You know, it's not like gas or electric, you know, and I would like to speak with somebody that has a little bit more understanding than I do about it, but in my mind, there just isn't as much involved to stream information through a line as compared to, I'll give a lot more flexibility to gas. I'll give a lot more flexibility to electric. I'll give a lot of flexibility to water. They bring things that we actually need. I don't think you need cable, and I don't think it's all that difficult to run as compared to those other services that you do actually need. We don't need the entertainment.
That's true.
So, you know, and I remember in 1982 when we got our first cable, you know, and you got all these upstart expenses when you're getting things going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why did we have every movie channel? We got our cable box, we had every movie channel, it came with remote control, and we were paying $12 a month. Now, I get it, prices go up, that was 1982, but inflation and everything, no, it's just a hard sale. I'll always go back to 1982, and you know, maybe they'll say, well, look, here was the deal. They had a 10-year plan, and they did raise the prices, but even when I graduated high school, we skipped all the movie channels and we were only paying $30 a month. So
Yeah, and now you'd be paying $130 or more
yes,
for all of that.
yes.
So,
I
It's
that's-
expensive to
Yeah,
have that.
it-
I cut the cable myself, so
I did well. The Wi-Fi, you have Wi-Fi still,
internet connection is all that I have.
so that's $50.
Not mine.
Do tell.
I have Time Warner Business Class,
Right.
so I run, you know, because I work and run.
So yours is more
I run.
expensive.
I pay over $400 a month for internet access.
Wow.
Ah.
Right. I don't know what my business pays. It's probably somewhere around there. Business class just makes it more expensive right off the bat.
Instantly.
Which
For the same exact service.
For you know, and that was the point I was going to make. So we're business owners. We're making all this fat cash. Blah blah blah. Oh, it's a business. It's not for your home. Let's jack it up by what? Or did you go up by 800% or like
Yeah.
700%? You know, just like
1,000%.
that. So it's stupid is what it is. It's like you got a label, and because you're a business owner, you can afford all these extra expenses, and it's just not true,
Right.
you know, because all of our costs get absorbed into stupid things like that, even though it's the same service. we get to pay a hell of a lot more for it. It's
Yeah.
frustrating.
It's not exactly the same service because I do hosting, so I buy IP addresses, but those IP addresses are only actually a $25 line item on the bill. But I can't get those IP addresses unless I have the business class, and the speed ratio that I am at has me up there. Now, unless I want to sign a new 3-year contract.
Oh, don't you love the contracts?
3-year contract, then they'll give it to me at like $280, they said. Not before they tried to upsell me to a plan that was $800 a month.
See, isn't that what pisses you off? Like all day long, right?
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm trying to not spend as much money, so I don't want to go from 400 to 800, thank you. The 280 was a nice move, but if I was planning on maintaining these IP addresses, which I know shortly will no longer need them, so I will be able to go back to regular residential internet.
Why do you need you call them IP addresses?
IP addresses.
What do you need them for?
Just like your house has a physical address so that the mail can be delivered,
Right.
to be able to run a server and have it available to the world, you need to have an address. So that way you can direct traffic to it.
And you don't want all that information going to the same mailbox, so you get...
Multiple ones, because I have multiple servers and you need one unique one for each server. Each server is
For
a house.
customers.
Yeah.
So again, this is probably something that shouldn't cost you more money, but because it's business related, they do.
Right.
So again,
I'm still given the same 30 by 5, so I have a 30 by 5 connection. 30 down, 5 up. And you need that to host because you got to push it out to the world. But the same 30 by 5 connection in residential, same speeds, but without the 5 IP addresses, I could get for $70 a month, $60 a month. No.
yeah,
You know,
it's-
so when you like, wow, that's a major difference just because I need those 5 IP addresses. So, yeah.
Well, I hope those are making you some money. But again, they found the cash cow.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike's making more money there, so
Yeah.
even though it doesn't cost us any more to give him the which I could be wrong, but anyway.
No, it still comes all across the same exact line.
Same line.
Same,
yeah,
same
that's
everything.
it. Mhm.
Yeah, same modems. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, one they can charge more for.
So I've got my eye on that one.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where nobody will be able to be. A smart person's going to be able to influence you and convince you that it's worth its while, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, how many people really know how much money goes into the system and how much it actually costs to, anyway.
To be fair, the $400 was a major savings over where I was before I moved it back into my house, because at that point in time I was paying $1,200 a month to have my servers at a server farm. So bringing it in-house and going from $1,200 a month
Yeah.
to $400 a month was a big savings. So that was money back into my pocket.
Which made Mike feel good.
Right. But now I'm
Yes.
at the other end of it. Now I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to keep these servers here anymore, because having servers is almost antiquated because we put it all up into the cloud now. We have cloud-based servers, right? We make servers in the cloud. We just go, here's a server. What do you want? How much memory you want that server to have?
And it doesn't cost that much money, too.
Oh, it's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
Per month.
Good.
Per month.
Good.
And then the server farm pays for the mega bandwidth pipe at the server farm, because then everybody in the server farm, it's like economy of scale.
Whose hardware is it? The cloud, in other words, the cable companies don't own the cloud's hardware, yes or no?
Well, the cable companies are a major portion of the internet, the cloud, the whole thing.
But do
Because
they own
without them-
the cloud is basically, tell me if I'm wrong, all the cloud is a big hard drive.
Yeah, I mean, that's a modern look at it. The cloud is really the internet, and the internet is made up of billions of little nodes, computers, that interact all throughout the entire globe. And these lines, the telephone lines connecting to this server at this server farm, that connect to this server at that server farm.
Well, wait a minute.
They all make this web of interconnections.
Well, wait a minute. What you said is the server farm. It's not my computer.
My house is a server farm. So at my house, but in my office,
So your office acts as a cloud.
Yeah, I'm a cloud the cloud is the internet. And it's, the cloud is the internet. Cloud services are services that exist on the internet as a hosted solution that sit on a server somewhere.
Well, who owns that server?
There's millions. I mean, you could have
But it's not Time Warner is my point.
They might sell servers and you could buy them from them. You can buy them from Microsoft. You can buy them from GoDaddy. You can call MTech Enterprises and I will sell you servers. Be happy to, and I'll sell them to you at the best rate.
Of course. I believe that.
Hey, and you got some water issues or mold remediation problems, you're calling Greg.
Right away. But let's get back on the server thing. So my point is this. This is stemmed outside of our local cable program,
Yes,
right? In our area,
absolutely can.
We've got Charter, we've got Uverse. Those are the two that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, again, AT&T and Time Warner, they physically own the telephone poles and the cable.
It's like Dominion. Dominion owns the gas lines in the ground. So I'm with you there, but...
So they all own those lines. So no matter what. So here you're thinking, what is an alternative? So you might say, well, I'm going to go with Earthlink.
Hold on. You're going
I'm jumping too far?
You're going in a different direction. My only point is this.
Right. Yeah.
The cloud is relatively inexpensive.
Today it is, yes.
Today it is. And the only reason...
And getting cheaper.
My guess, the only reason that the cloud is less expensive is because other people got involved outside of your Time Warners and your Uverse and any of the other fat cats that have the physical hardware linking all this information from computer to computer to computer, and then you have these other folks outside of them that jumped into this cloud game, built their own hardware via the cloud, or also known as the cloud, right? Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden the price goes way down.
Yeah. I don't know if it's exactly correlated to that specifically, because the internet works by many players, not just Time Warner, although they do provide a major amount of... You have to look at the lines, the physical lines that are laid in the ground. That's really the backbone of the internet.
Sure.
And that's owned by AT&T and Time
Well, that's
Warner.
my point.
But before that,
they've got more people involved, that more people purchase from Time Warner and Uverse more than anybody else. More than any other service provided for your computer. They're making lots of money, and they've got our arm twisted behind our back because we've got to go to them because there's nobody else to go to. Now all of a sudden another game outside of these lines under the ground opens up, and it's called the cloud. Well, believe me, if these people hadn't jumped into the cloud and gave us an opportunity to purchase from them other than Charter
but it's different because you still have your internet access, which is still AT&T and Time Warner. So you still have that internet access. But there was always other players in the nodes, the endpoints where the information lived, the stuff that you were accessing from the internet, from the cloud.
Right.
So you were going to AOL. That was a big one of the day. But AOL, you dialed AOL's phone numbers, but AOL bought those phone numbers for AT&T or Verizon, right? So they're always in you to get to them, to dial them with your modems and make that internet connection. Had AT&T. And the same thing goes on today. You have Uverse, but you only have two choices, AT&T or Time Warner, because it's physically who brings it to you. Unless you go with the cellular service, but that's a horrible internet connection. You wouldn't run your home off of that.
Right.
So you only have two choices. But where you get your data from, you have multiple choices. Because you can go to Amazon, you can go to Microsoft.
You and I are saying the same thing, just differently. I'm just making the point that you've got Uverse, AT&T, or Uverse and AT&T are one and the same. And then you have what is now Charter, who used to be Time Warner.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. So let's just minimize. You got Uverse or you've got Charter. You can pick one of those two services to move this information wherever it's going.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, they're charging more than all the other services that use their service as a caveat to run their own.
Right.
I'm just making the point that those guys are charging too much money for those services. And I don't think it was any accident when I think it was George Bush or W that said, it was either George Bush or maybe it was George Bush Sr. that said that cable is something you can't live without. Similar to the utilities I had mentioned earlier, water, gas, electric.
Right.
I don't believe that. You cut your cable,
I
I cut my cable. The only thing I kept was Wi-Fi because that is something that's important. I don't need it. I don't need it to live, but it's something important enough to me that I'll pay the stinking $50 for. You'll pay the $400 for. I'm glad you're saving the $800, by the way, and keeping it in your pocket.
Thank you.
But it should be less. It should be less. They're making lots of money.
It could be free if they wanted to give it to us and make it a, government subsidized. Everybody in the U.S. gets free internet. Woo!
Well, you know what? I don't ask for anything for nothing. I don't mind paying a bill, but I don't want to pay an inflated
You pay
bill.
enough in taxes to cover your internet.
Well, and would we be surprised? Would we be surprised to find out that somehow Time Warner or Uverse somehow got our tax dollars to pay for the infrastructure so they could make a ton of money? I wouldn't be surprised.
That probably happened.
Well, because the inventor of the internet wasn't who ran
Al Gore.
It wasn't Al Gore. It was the U.S. government, though.
It was.
And we probably did pay for all that infrastructure, and they just came up with the organizational chart of a company to run it. Who knows? I just don't like it.
Well, it runs over the phone lines, which was Ma Bell, AT&T, Alexander Graham Bell, telegraphs. Those lines from the get-go power the internet. The internet exists because of this technology, the ability that information is able to be sent from point A to point B. And they've been doing that since the 1800s,
But there was a major shift. So in the 80s, Ohio Bell, right? Ohio Bell, you didn't just buy a telephone. You had to rent a telephone from Ohio Bell. And that's the way it worked up until I think it was the early 80s. Now here's kind of a funny story. So my parents had one of those old phones on their wall that they were still renting every month. Mom and Dad would pay the $250 a month for this phone. I was in the military. It was like 1991. And I was on the phone from Fort Hood, Texas, talking to my mom, and she had mentioned something about the phone being rented still. And I said, Mom, why are you still renting that phone? And she says, well, I don't know. I said, well, let's do some simple math here, And here in 1992, we'd figured out that my parents had paid something like $850 for this phone on the wall where they could have bought one for $50, and would have done the same thing. So, she kind of woke up to that. But there's another scenario where, similar to the internet, Ohio Bell worked like that. We are the kings. We own this. They probably, again, that's probably something tax dollars paid for.
Absolutely.
But it was a racket. People paid way too much money, and then it was, I don't know what you want to call it, it was just opened up and some things changed, and now all of a sudden you didn't have to go to Ohio Bell. You had opportunities to go to other people, and all of a sudden the price shot way down.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Just to play off of what you were saying about your parents and renting the phone, you would have saved all that money. Time Warner has that exact same practice, because when you call them and order your cable service, they'll say, hey, do you want Wi-Fi with that? And now the modem in itself has an antenna built into it, Wi-Fi signal. And they'll charge you $10 a month to turn that Wi-Fi signal on. And all it is a checkbox inside of the software of the modem itself. So they can either turn it on or turn it off. But if you want Wi-Fi via their box, you pay $10 a month. And a lot of people say, yeah, I want Wi-Fi, and they'll have it turned on. They'll pay that's $120 a month, or $120 a year at $10 a month.
But don't they have to turn it on if you want Wi-Fi?
No, because you can go out and spend $30 to $60 over at Best Buy, pick yourself up a small wireless router and plug it in at home, and have Wi-Fi in your entire home for the one-time charge of $40. Just like your parents had to go out and buy the phone and save the money.
So that's
you could go out
probably
and
what
buy-
I'm doing right now.
So if there's a line item that you're paying for Wi-Fi, there's no reason to be doing so. You're just paying for it because it's coming out of their box and they're charging you a monthly fee for it.
Thank you. You know, I know there's millions of people watching this podcast right now thinking the same thing I am. I've got to keep on watching this podcast because you just saved a ton of people money. I think I'm one of those jerk-offs that's paying that $10 a month. Now, I don't even get a bill from AT&T anymore, which is odd, right?
Mine just automatically comes off.
It just automatically
Sends you an email?
it comes out of my bank account, blah, blah, blah. I don't get a bill from them anymore, so
I might be saving money.
I'm going to get to, I might be saving money?
Yeah, no. Go bill lists and we'll give you 2% off.
Oh,
We won't send you a bill, we'll just charge you.
You know, I did that for myself. I like to do, I feel a little uncomfortable with it. I don't like my information being out there connected to my checking account. I'm just one of those people, but I did it because it's just a pain in the butt to sit down and do your utilities and your AT&T. But it makes you forget, and they're hip to that scheme. And like I said, I don't receive any bills for them. So I'm going to make that fun cable phone call, right? I'm going to make that fun. We all love doing that. Calling the kid, they give you a lot of good music to listen to. It only takes about 25 minutes. And if you're lucky, and you're going to get disconnected 3 times. It's going to be a lot of fun and talk to somebody from India. But so I've got to look into that one.
Yeah.
And interesting. All right, so restaurant, upcoming events. Do we want to hit upcoming events?
Well, I mean, right here in our neighborhood is Porch Rocker coming up.
Right.
That is August 20th, so that's less than a month away.
Let me see. I've already got I don't know why I've got this twice at the end of our thing. Do we want to do upcoming events at the very end?
We could leave people with a bang.
With what's going on?
With what's going on around in town.
All right.
You might see Mike or Greg out in these events, come up and shake her hand, say, "Wow, I watch your podcast," and we'll give you a T-shirt.
And I might change the title right now. What we did in Akron in restaurants is the only thing we have, and what I called current events. But I think I'm going to end up changing that little area. The other thing, we have things that need fixed in Akron. Right? And I'm saying Talmadge Avenue needs to be repaved. That's my big thing this week.
100% in agreement with that statement.
Right? Life will be a lot better.
Oh,
Keeping in mind, again, our back roads. So
So
cat's out of the bag. We may as well just talk about it. But our backyard has one of the main veins of Akron. It's called Memorial Parkway, and a lot of you probably already know this, but Memorial Parkway turns into Talmadge Ave. And if you want to get a good kickstart to get to go anywhere outside of Akron, we all go up to Route 8, right?
Yep.
Which again, it goes Memorial Parkway, and then it magically turns into Talmadge Avenue, and then you go up about 3 miles, and then you can get on Route 8. The road there is atrocious right now, and there's so much traffic going through there, and they've got another major construction project going on there. So my hope is that once all that sewer, and I'm assuming it's the sewer that they're
it looks
working
like
on
sewer
out there.
work, yeah.
They've opened up that road 3 times, right at the intersection of State Street and Talmadge Avenue, 3 times this year. So it's a major project.
Yeah.
Hopefully when they're done with the project, that road gets paved and everything will be good.
I'm hoping, because the only new pavement that place has received was right in front of the brand new Burger King. And just a little section, just the lane.
Oh, that was nice.
Just that little lane. So every time you get to that part and you're like, I make sure I get in the right-hand lane and I pass the Burger King. I'm like, oh,
that
the road's
feels
so
so good.
smooth. Pow, pow, pow. Watch out for the major chuck hole right up in front of it, right here at that intersection.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that took out my front alignment.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the whole road.
Oh,
really,
that's just...
The road is atrocious.
That would be,
so.
you know what they said about that road back in one point, it used to be a brick road back in the day.
Right.
But pregnant ladies would get in their cars or buggies or whatever, and they would go up and down that road because it's so bumpy, bump, 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 and it was supposed to help them
Well, that's one of the tricks.
Give birth.
Spicy food, bumpy roads, long walks, you know.
So that's the pregnancy road now. So if
Yeah.
you're pregnant and you need
Yeah.
to give birth quick.
And with all the Hmong
Head
and
on
the
down
people
there.
from, not India, Nepal, we got, and all those,
Malaysia.
then they're popping them out like crazy. So maybe that's the reason they're popping them out so much. You know?
Very well.
That
Well,
road's
you know
not
what?
one. But
Right
most
next
of
to
them-
it is St. Thomas Hospital, so
It
that's
all
where I was
works.
born at, so you know.
That's where I was born at.
Awesome.
And I'm saying, most of them walk though, which,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
so that
walk, which is good.
walking's good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with walking.
So that's the thing that needs to be fixed in Akron this week anyway. I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll come up with others. But you know what? Let's not talk about just what needs to be fixed. What's good in Akron? You know, we're going to add, you know, if we're going to put us down, let's
talk about the greatness. Well,
We only one thing a week. We can only pick what's
Akron
good
is the
about
greatest
it.
city in America.
You think that?
I do think that's why I choose to live here. But nobody else should think that. Everyone else should stay in their city. Don't come here because we have the best hospitaling in the world or the lowest cost of living.
I love Akron. You know, I'm going to round it down. One of the reasons why I love Akron, and you'd mentioned it earlier, but park systems, which we pay a lot of money for, although I got a little story off that. But yeah, the park systems in Akron are excellent. So we are less than 2 or 3 miles away from 7 what I would call major trailheads. You know, where you can park your car, hit a different trail, walk, run, bike, you name it. It suits the whole gambit. They're very well maintained. Again, we do pay a lot of money for them. But yeah, that would be that's what's great about Akron for me this week. Park systems.
Park systems, yeah, wow, that's a great one. What's great about Akron for me this week is we sit on a pedestal, a plane, a higher, you know, that's why we live in Summit County, and, you know, it's the top of the area. And because
Highest elevation.
Yeah, the highest elevation of the area. And one of the things about that is that it does bring us different weather than around other people around us. And I'm just going to have to say, the weather here has just been absolutely phenomenal this year. And it's just, I've been smiling every day. It's just sunny, it's beautiful, the temperature is great.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so
Yep.
as far as that goes, I guess that's not necessarily about Akron per se, but because we are at the highest elevation, and I think that does aid in the fact that, you know, the storms kind of spread around us. You know, like when tornadoes come through the area, they don't come through downtown Akron,
Right.
ever.
Right.
You know, they tend to go around and they just go just north or just south of Akron. They kind of collect around and come to the other side. Unfortunately, but I think that's one of the terrain of where we happen to be located, I think, is a bonus. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Having been in the construction industry, and I travel a lot for work, be it construction or water damage, and I've always paid attention to the weather patterns because I'll work in a different location, probably 30-mile radius around Akron, and you're on the money. The city of Akron has a weather pattern that, you know, don't get me wrong, it can get real nasty at times. But it's I don't know the word, but it's I like it more than a lot of the surrounding areas. You go to Medina, you got a lot more sun. I don't like sun. I like iron skies at 65 degrees. I could do that year round. I'd be a happy camper. I like the occasional sunny day, don't get me wrong, but we get a little bit more cloud cover. And you're not always burning as hot as like Medina. Medina gets so much hotter out there. If you go to Brimfield, you're going to get rain at least 100%. You know, when they say, you know, that we've got a 30% chance of rain, I know where that rain's going to go. It's going to go out the Brimfield and out that area.
Yeah.
So, and we get hit with some decent snows, but we don't get crazy like Macedonia or North Royalton. I mean, when we get 5 inches, they're going to get 15 inches, and that's just the way of it. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. Never thought about it. Never gave it that much thought. So the weather, you like the weather in Akron?
Yeah.
Cool. We'll have your next one ready for next week.
Okay.
I forgot.
I like that segment.
Me too. Little quick fact about Wisconsin. So I had a friend of mine from my running club go to Wisconsin for business, and she had a little bit of time off, so she went to one of their either a state or a local park, but she had to pay $5 to go to a cruddy trail. I mean, it was nothing to write home about, and she had to pay $5. Now, she could have got a deal. She could have paid $27 for the month. So, Akron, Ohio in general, we got it pretty good when it comes to our park systems. Now, I don't know if they're paying taxes for their park system like we are or not, and maybe that's why you have to pay for it, but that is steep. When you have to pay $5 for a day to go into a park so you can walk down a trail, run down a trail, it gets you to think.
That does get you. That was a state park?
I believe it was. It might have been a local park. It might, and that's the way she described it. She said it was similar to the trail that we were running that day, but not as good. Is the way she said. She was glad to go. She paid the $5. She was in a different state, wanted to see a different park than she was familiar with. She did it, but she said, "Yeah, we should be very, very." Feel lucky that we have what we have.
Yeah. Well, we have excellent park systems. If you haven't gone out, you can't miss them. You know, you all see them around here, around town. You're driving down the road and there's a trailhead.
And if you're not going to them, I would recommend going. And if you decide not to, shame on you. But it makes it
shamed.
It makes it nicer for the people that do enjoy it, because sometimes you'll go out there and there are a lot of people, but usually very few people in the park, especially during the weekdays. You know, you'll hit the big run time around 5 to 6 o'clock. You know, you'll find a lot of people on the running trail. Yeah. But other than that, most trailheads are just vacant.
Yeah, they're pretty empty. You get out there and, you know, you see several other people, but, you know, they're not crowded.
No.
So, you know,
and
when the apocalypse comes and you need expansive area to be at, you can go out to the trail. Oh, darn!
It's not gonna be vacant anymore, you know.
Yeah.
That's what's good. But that's what's good about the park. Even if it is full, there is so much room out there. You know, you start walking down. You never see anybody while you're walking down the trail, and that's just really, really cool.
Well, the thing is that the trail system, you know, starts up in Cleveland and goes all the way down through southern Ohio, and they're even talking about getting more grants and more funds to open it up all the way down to Marietta.
Yeah, they've been working on that for some time.
You know, so that's from the top of the state to the bottom of the state. You know, 77 runs, you know, from the top to the bottom for people that aren't from the area. Route 77. But that runs from the top, from Lake Erie, all the way down to the Ohio River.
Well, and you nailed something that's important to put out there for people that don't know what the heck we're talking about. You've got a series of different trails going on. So we have the bike path that's actually at the bottom of Memorial Parkway. There are trailheads. I'm going to guess I'm familiar with probably at least 16 trailheads that'll take you to a bike path. Okay, so that's the one system we have going through there. We have several local, like the running trail down at Sand Run. That's more of a local trail, and so you have that series. And then the other one that I'm familiar with is the Buckeye Trail. Do you know the Buckeye Trail?
Not by name.
So the Buckeye Trail is more backwoods than the other trails. And the other trail, similar to, the Sand Run Parkway is a little bit different because that's designed specifically for running. But there are other trails that go up into the hills that are more for hiking, albeit we do run those as well, but are more designed for hiking, and you have a lot of trails like that. But then you have the Buckeye Trail, and that shoots off a lot of the park systems that I was just telling you about.
Right.
And it's even more aggressive. It's a lot more aggressive to run or more aggressive to hike and whatnot. And you're more closed by the woods. You know, you don't have a 4 to 6 foot path anymore. You're down to about anywhere between 8 inches to a 16-inch trail, and you're going through terrain that is a lot more expansive. And then the other one is, and then they've got bridle trails. You know, and so it's just endless. I mean, it's hard to hit all the trails.
There's so many of them, and Nature Realm, the Nature Realm Trail.
Nature Realm.
That's a great walking.
And that's kind of connected with Sand Run, but that's a whole different thing, right?
It's its own entity.
It's got trails, and then you've got they've got, if you like horticulture and you like to see things grow, and it's a lot, you can see a lot more different animals, birds flying into the trees. They've got a lot of a huge assortment of them.
And the nature center you can go into, and they got different animals in there, and they have usually a park ranger just talking about what animals they're seeing.
I haven't been there since I think I was in nursery school.
Oh, it's completely rebuilt now. It's
right. I've seen the building.
It's one of those geodome buildings, so there's got a grass roof on it and everything. It's really cool.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out.
I gotta get Charlie over there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place to go walking.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Park systems are good.
Yeah.
Fun fact about Akron. I think I hit my fun fact, but should we throw in a fun fact?
Here's a fun fact. I'm not going to remember the name, but it doesn't make it that it's not true.
No,
I forget.
Everybody says.
I forget what year it was, but the world yo-yoing champion it was an older lady. Or a lady. She was the world yo-yoing champion, and she is from Akron, Ohio.
All right.
They haven't done yo-yoing competitions, I don't think, in a long time.
That's
But
too bad.
a world record holder is here from Akron, so there's a good fun fact.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
My fun fact, I mentioned this to you in one of the earlier podcasts, albeit I don't know if anybody could hear me talk about it, so I'm going to read it.
Oh, yeah, reiterated. Anything from our first three.
It should be.
Nobody even heard those, and if you sat through and listened to the first three, let me know, because you're going to get an extra bozo button.
They deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are pretty rough.
I'll make sure I get you something.
My fun fact for the week, if it were not for Akron, if it were not for Akron, New York City may have never existed. And I heard that on a recording as I was boating in one of those, tour boats in New York City, and where you go around the Statue of Liberty and do a tour of New York City.
Right.
They said that, clear as a bell. They said if it hadn't been for the city of Akron, New York City may have not been there. That threw me back.
Did they say what the connection was? Why?
Canals. The canal. So the way it was explained to me, evidently Perkins, and that name should be familiar. We've got roads, and I believe the house is at the top of the hill. Perkins evidently was an entrepreneur, and he was the one that influenced the whole idea of the canal system going through Akron. So have you ever seen that movie? There's a football movie. Back in the day, like the 1920s, the Leatherheads maybe been the movie. You know what movie I'm talking about?
No, but I remember the leather helmets.
Well, it was a movie that took place in the 1920s, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is that Akron was recognized in that movie. Okay, which is, why was Akron recognized? Well, Akron has always been I don't know if we're a Mecca now, but we were a Mecca. We did a lot of business. We are the rubber city and all that kind of good stuff. But
it was an early football movie though, right? So that kind of got its birth out of Canton, right? Football.
Well, I'm just telling you.
There's been a good reason though why it might have been mentioned. What was the reason that it was mentioned?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
All I know is that it's in like similar to me taking that boat ride in New York City.
Right.
I hear Akron. My ears open up like this. What's going on? And in that movie, I can't tell you specifically why it was mentioned, but it was mentioned in a way that, oh, this is a big deal. We're going to Akron. Akron was a really big deal, and it started with that canal system that went through. So that being said, that's why New York City existed, because it was very, very important to export things from New York City to Akron, because we were Akron, which is awesome. And I think it's even more awesome that we didn't become this huge metropolis. I mean, Akron's got a lot of character.
Right.
It's not a huge city, but it still maintains this character from yesterday and stayed small. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Kept its charm.
Kept its charm.
Yeah, it would be interesting because there's a lot of, you can go downtown to some of the buildings, there's a lot of old photographs of Akron back in the day. There used to be a cable car system that ran through downtown. People would hop on the cable car and you'd go to O'Neill's or to Polsky's, big department stores.
We got to be careful because we don't want to use up all our fun facts all in the same podcast.
Yeah, you're right. I could just roll.
So that's my fun fact.
I like it. That's a good one.
Cool. How are we doing on time there?
How are we?
I didn't time this one. I think we're up on our hour though.
Oh,
I'm guessing.
well, is it 10:30?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No. It's 9:30. No. Wait. 21. 9:30.
No, 9:30. Ooh,
9:30.
oh yeah. Okay.
Right?
Because I was thinking we originally started on a 2-hour, 8 to 10. So I'm thinking.
I was thinking, does Mike want to do 2 hours?
Yeah,
This guy crazy.
But here we went almost an hour and a half, so it's pretty good. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. See, again, authentic. There's no start time. There's no end time. There's no director off camera here going, all right, guys, go to commercial.
We don't have that. We don't have to worry about that. But let's do kind of we're not at the point where we're going to tell them what we told them. We're still figuring out the outline and all
that might be
good
the next
stuff.
couple shows where we get to that.
Till we get
good
it all
flow
pinned
here.
down, but we
Right.
eliminated some things. I think we got a lot better flow going on. We've got a name.
All right, Akron Podcast.
The Akron Podcast.
Yeah,
Oh, did you say the?
I hope I did. 'Cause I meant to say that. The Akron Podcast.
Because that was a big point last week,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. That was the thing
Akron
that we're talking
Podcast.
about, the or not having that, yeah.
So, and I think if you say the Akron Podcast or the Akron Podcast, those two work.
Yeah.
That's acceptable by all
Absolutely.
means.
Because there's no other Akron podcast that you should be listening to.
What we should do next week, I think, is we'll just start off where we left off and we'll chisel this thing down. And, yeah, that's my thought. What do
Well,
you
that's
think?
great. I think that's great. Greg, you did an awesome job here.
Thank
We didn't
you.
get to page 2 there, did we?
No, well, we didn't get through page 1.
Wow.
And what I'm guessing is...
We can talk.
Well,
fill
we
up
can,
some time here, can't
we can talk, and it's interesting to me is that, while we talk about the things that we're not so excited about, that's kind of where we get a little rough, I think, but, right? So,
Yeah.
good to cast that stuff out, and then we start talking. It's going to be interesting. I think we're going to be held down to maybe 3 to 4 things, and then I think it's
Very well.
just going to...
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I just
No.
think it's
They're great.
it's all going to flow well. And
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not that we have to hit all these great bullet topic points that we're going to talk about at every show. We could talk about 2 of them that remain the same through every show maybe,
Right.
and then the other 2 are something different. And that's just...
Or you could say, hey, Greg, what's your fun fact of the week? Mike, I didn't give it any thought. Let's not waste time on it. Boom.
There we go.
Right?
Right.
Or
Could
something like
happen.
that. So,
Right.
But I do, what's interesting about this is what I'm hoping to do, and I'm going to just throw it right on the table. My whole goal in this thing is to put together a podcast that does have a flow, that we're talking about things that we like to talk about.
Right.
You know, we went through that whole thing with the rubber ducks. And then, you know, just chisel it down so that it's fun for us and palatable for them. That's my personal goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're on that track. The only thing I want us to be able to do is then take those segments and chop them up and even give them 10-minute samples of us, so they don't have to watch this whole show. I mean, we want you to watch the whole show when we release it, you know, because then you get the full vibe, the full authenticity.
But sometimes people don't have time to watch
That's
the
right.
show, right?
But you still want to grab.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to know? Hey, what was the Akron Podcast fun fact of the week? Fun fact of the week, and then we'll play the clip, right?
And maybe some people will like that fun fact portion, but hate the rest of it. So why waste your time on all the other garbage that we're talking about, like Time Warner Cable and Uverse?
Right. Although if you heard that, listen to that, I would have saved you said, possibly $120 a year. Right?
And people are saving money that way.
Wow. You know, you guys can all send me a check for $60 and I'll say thank you.
That's one
Isn't that
heck of
going
a
to be
deal.
nice?
I think it's going to happen. Look in your mailbox. It'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
Well, let's sign this sucker off.
All right. Well, we're going to have to come up with an official sign-off, but for today, I say, Akron Podcast out.
Guys, thanks for listening, especially to Disco Steve. He's probably still the only person watching us. Have a good week, guys.
Heart is breaking down, I've been so I'm thinking I feel friend.